First one being case number 2810, Hawkshill LLC, 106 Pulaski Street.
I move we accept its decision as proposed.
And I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Next one is case number 2811, Skyfall Lee LLC, 130 Lee Avenue.
I move we accept this decision as proposed.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the third one is EAM 40 Meadow Lane, LLC, 40 Meadow Lane.
I move we accept this decision as proposed.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want the zip stuff that
Good night.
goes with that? I have an extra
You've
copy.
got it there.
I think you wanted those prior ones.
He wants the Skyfall?
Yeah.
Here's a complete set on that.
Oh, you want this back?
No.
Okay. Thanks very much.
That takes us down to the pending cases, of which we only have one. 2812, Eric Folkema, 117 Bailey Road. Is everybody here for that application?
Good evening, how are you? I know they were waiting for some paperwork, which I submitted on the 14th. Calculations. I didn't know if there was any questions.
Calculations. There it is.
Harry from Building Permits Request, yes.
Did you have anything that you wanted to give us this evening?
No, I just didn't know if
You'd
there were
just
any
like to go over
questions
that
regarding.
with us, just so
Okay,
the public knows what you gave us?
I know they were asking for the percentages of areas of proposed. The existing square footage of the house that was conforming, non-conforming, and the proposed that was conforming and non-conforming. And I know we submitted that. Let's see. Let's see. Gross floor area of the existing entry level was 1,754 square feet. And then the gross floor area of the proposed entry level was 3,035 square feet, 735 being conforming, 546 being non-conforming, 385 of that being the garage. The gross floor area of the existing second story was 1,013 square feet. Proposed second story was, let's see, hold on. Got the right one here. Was 1,487 square feet. Non-conforming was 474 square feet. The total existing floor area is 2,767 square feet, and the total proposed floor area, 4,522. Non-conforming being 943, conforming being 3,579.
What was the non-conforming again?
You have different numbers.
943.
Yeah, we have 1020 here, 1020.
This one. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Oops. I was looking at the one before she revised it. So, yes, 1020 is
Right,
non-conforming.
So
Is there any questions? Or?
it'll be less than 50% then.
Yes.
We're gonna have to, she's given us the data that we asked for. We're gonna have to, when we make a decision, we're gonna have to analyze this and see how it fits into our policy and interpretation on the 50% clause. It's on a quick look, it looks like it's in a gray area, so we gotta analyze it before we do a decision.
Okay. Rob, anything?
No,
Dan?
no, parking's good, right? Yeah, good. Plenty of parking.
Yeah, there's lots of parking. Everything, Jerry? No. Rick, did everything else?
Nope.
Anybody out in the audience who'd like to be heard of this case? No, therefore we're gonna have to hold it open.
We can close it
Or
for
close it for
decision.
decision.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Takes us down to the new cases, the first one being 2814 Carol L. Lynn, 196 Hill Street.
It's a good thing I'm running late. For the applicant, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. I have an affidavit of posting and an affidavit of mailing. Okay, this is an application for front yard relief to permit a two-story addition on the north side of the existing house located the subject property at the same setback as the majority of the existing house. As you can see from the survey submitted, the house is actually located in the extreme southwesterly corner of the property. In fact, a part of it is right on the property line. But the proposed addition we're talking about is in line with the main body of the house. One thing I'll say, even before I go further, is that when we originally filed the application, the site plan showed a proposed spa or hot tub located at a 15-foot setback from the south property line. It was my impression at that time that that structure did not constitute a swimming pool and therefore could observe the normal accessory setbacks, but I since learned that the building department treats things like that as having to meet the same setback as a swimming pool. So as a result, we've removed that from the application. So the portion of the application that requested any relief for the spa shown on the survey should be deemed withdrawn, and I have a revised survey that has removed that. It's last revised April 22nd. And along with that, there was a minor adjustment to the lot coverage calculations, which removed the 64 square feet the spa represented. The thing about this application is that, as you can see from the survey, that we're going no closer to the west property line, and that's the only line we're talking about really being affected by this application. We're maintaining the same setback as the main body of the existing house. This would be a proposed two-story addition. We submitted floor plans and elevations with the application, which among other things show that the proposed addition would comply with the pyramid law, so we don't need any relief from that. The survey also shows some additional structures as being proposed, a garage and a pool house. They both conform, and they don't need any relief, but they're shown on the survey nonetheless. It's also important to note that the pool equipment is shown at a 20-foot setback, which is the requirement in this zoning district. So the proposal is to add a two-story addition, as I indicated, with a cellar. The first floor would contain a new den, porch, and entry hall, and the second floor would contain a master bedroom suite. One of the reasons we put the addition where we did is that in order to work functionally, to line up with the existing improvements with the existing house, that makes the most functional sense. In fact, if you look at the floor plans, you'll note that the stairs leading up to the second floor are aligned so as to serve this addition as well. Virtually any addition on this house would require a variance, so it's not really as if we could do this without variance relief. We've also shown on the survey 5 off-street parking spaces in a conforming location, including one in the proposed garage, so no relief is being requested in that regard. Now, since this is a 50% case, I had the architect, William Schultz, do a calculation of the gross floor area of the existing house, which is 1,720 square feet. The proposed addition would add 860 square feet, which is 50% of the existing gross floor area, so we would be at the limit, but not above it, and I'll offer that letter for the record. As you know, but I'll just say for the record, this is one of the variances that you're expressly authorized to consider under 11628C1A. We are aware of the fact that if this application is granted, we would have used up the 50% maximum allowed. So basically, in doing the balancing test, we examine how substantial the request is in relation to the requirement. While the proposed setback is 16.2 feet from the west property line, it's no closer than the existing house. In fact, it's further away from the line than the existing house, and it also conforms with the permitting law. It's important to note that no other setback relief is necessary for this addition. It meets the side minimum and total side yard requirements, and it obviously meets the rear yard requirement. The only property being affected is the property located immediately to the west of the subject application. As I said, given the location, the pre-existing location of the existing house and its layout internally, there's no feasible way to do this without a variance. There would be no increased demand on services. This will still remain a single-family dwelling with conforming on-site parking. As far as a negative environmental impact is concerned, is again, we're not increasing density, and most likely this project will involve upgrading the sanitary system, which would actually be an environmental benefit. Now, as far as the effect on the neighborhood is concerned, what I did was, and I was fortunate, I got copies of the surveys of the 3 parcels located to the north, south, and west of the subject, and they luckily all had the same scale, so I was able to make a composite map of the 3 lots, which I'll hand up. And it's important because it shows the location of the improvements relative to what's around it. And as you can see on the south, in fact, I'll hand this out so you can have it while I'm talking. Has enough been coming around? Have enough copies been?
Pardon?
Have
Yeah,
enough
we've had
copies
them.
people,
Yep.
written? Looks like it might be one short, though. These are all, by the way, at a 30 scale, 1 inch equals 30 feet. So if you examine the proposed addition, which is pretty much in the center, as you can see, the existing 2-story house would totally screen it from the property to the south. As far as the property to the north is concerned, that faces the backyard of that property, and there's quite a few feet before you encounter anything else. The property to the west, from which the variance is being sought, the proposed addition would face a pool house and a shade house and a swimming pool, and I would submit that that would have no adverse effect on that property, which, as you know, is, although it's a single and separate lot, is part of the Chabad complex that's located immediately to the west. So I would submit to you that the impact on the neighborhood is nil, essentially. The difficulty is not self-imposed. The condition exists by virtue of the long-standing nature of the house, and that's the layout of the house itself. Now, in closing, I'll mention I did take a look at the village's files, and no previous variances have been granted for this property that I could find, so that none of the 50%'s been used up before. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
You do something with that little shed back there that seems to be straddling the property line?
No, I don't really know whose shed that is. I have to find out. But if it's ours, I'm sure we could arrange to relocate it or remove it. That would not be a problem. Looks as if it's almost half and half,
Yeah.
but if it's ours, we'll move it or remove it.
I was a little concerned where you have, it's called a proposed window wells, but the window wells facing, I guess it would be west. It's like a lower, a sunken courtyard. It's, you have the setback from the property line to the rear of the building is 16.2.
Right.
But the setback to that window well has got to be
It's
10 feet?
It shows on the survey, and I talked to the building department about that, actually. And
Yeah.
in previous cases, the building department, and up to now, they don't count window wells and
Well,
depressions like that.
what's happening though is a window well usually is like a 3 feet, sort of a round or areaway just to allow light into the basement. But these are like glorified courtyards, because what they do is people now want to finish the basement, make a full room out of it, and they want to have full sunlight and full windows in the basement. So this is, in effect, the whole foundation is extended out like 5 or 6 feet from the house. It's more than a window well. It's more like a lower courtyard. I don't know, we don't really have anything, this is coming up more and more, we don't have anything in the zoning, but this is in an area that they want relief from. And I guess where I'm a little concerned, because it goes across the whole back of the property, it's tight to the other house, there'd only be about 10 feet between it and that neighbor's shed, and if you know, I think of safety, you know, if there were ever a fire, or, you know, if anybody had to get back in there, there's a hedge, it's tight, you know, and it's a big hole. These areaways are, and then they have a big one on the front side too, so it's sort of like they're grabbing everything they can get on these areaways.
I think the reason for them was that, as you can see from the floor plans, it is designed to finish the basement. So
That's correct. So
that's-
it's not an areaway just to let light in a window. It's like a sunken courtyard is what that is.
Right, it's an
You can get out
access.
and walk around in there.
As long as, as far as I can see, and I don't know if the architect is here, yeah, Will Schultz is here, the main purpose of that, as I understand, is to provide the legal means of egress. If that can be
But you have
reduced,
two of them. You have one in the front and one on the side.
I think if we can, and I'll let Mr. Schultz talk about that, as long as we can meet the fire egress, that would probably be okay. Now, I did check as recently as today with the building department, and when you have a cellar, which this is, because it's virtually all of it's below grade, that does not count towards the gross floor area.
Right,
Right.
that's fine. I think it's fine
Right.
if they finish the basement, but
Right.
I'm finding more and more of these window wells
Right.
aren't really window wells anymore, you know,
No,
so.
it's an access, it's a means of, as you can see on the
And
plan, it's a way to
The
get
problem
out.
is if it was in a conforming location, I don't even have that much of a problem, but this is like a foundation being built already where we're non-conforming, you know,
Right, as I say, I do know that the building department, and I've checked with them recently, they take the position that these things like this don't count towards setbacks. I've actually had cases like that, which I've asked the building department about before, and they've given a permit. But that's not to say we can't take a look at it and see if we can reduce it or redesign it.
well, that was the only thing I was
Yeah.
concerned about,
Okay,
because
no,
it's tight, it's tight in there.
I don't think there'd be a problem with reducing. I mean, the 6 foot was sort of arbitrary on my part when I put it in, you know, because I figured for egress and. have a
I mean,
line
for
in there. So
egress, you only need 3 feet,
3 or
right?
4 feet would be fine with me.
Right, so
I'm
let's,
sure
we
we
can
can be
see if we
fine.
can reduce it.
There you go.
That's fine. That's fine.
That was my only concern.
I think we can address that, and we'll submit revised plans and come back to you.
Rob,
No, I'm not.
you in, Jerry?
Just one question, more for curiosity than anything else, but the west lot line is being treated as the front lot line,
Right.
and I'm just curious as to whether that's a determination that, or election that was previously made for this property, or whether it's an election being made now.
I think it was, if you look at where the pool is, I think that's what kind of dictates that the pool would have to be in a rear yard.
Oh, yeah, it must have been, now that you mention that, it must have been, previously determined, otherwise the pool would be in a front yard somewhere.
Correct.
Right.
That's why, yeah, that's
Okay.
why I did, yeah.
I have no questions.
Is there anyone out in the public who'd like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Robert Fischetti, Ferdinand Fischetti. I represent Christine Triant, who's the owner of 39 First Neck, or 39 Terry Court, which shares the, I guess it's the southwest, that whole property line. I believe both of our concerns have been answered, but if I could see the latest
Site plan?
Yeah, it was really just the hot tub.
That's
because
gone.
that was the closest thing to them. They just were concerned about noise.
Yeah, no, actually, there's a letter in the file. I actually submitted a letter yesterday formally withdrawing it.
Yeah, we
so-
just were retained today, and I just
Yep,
missed the
sure.
file at the building department before it got
Okay.
sent over
Give
here.
me a copy of the survey. See, it's gone.
Okay.
Last revised proposed
Maybe
bar
it's
relief.
this shed.
And then our other question,
Maybe it's this shed.
the shed, I believe based on the location of the fence, is yours, just because the fence wraps around it here.
I have no problem.
So that was our only other concern, is taking care of the shed.
I'm sure that won't be a problem.
But other than that, they didn't have any concerns about the rest of the additions, so.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're gonna submit something to
Yeah, I'm gonna
us.
submit some, so we can keep it open for all purposes. I'll submit a revised.
I move we keep this application open for all purposes.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Bastard person at the series. On the application of case number 2815, Harkonnen LLC and Atreides LLC, 408 First Neck Lane.
Good evening. For the applicant, John Bennett and Oliver Cope, the project architect is with me this evening as well.
John, we've had this before us before, right?
Yes, you did. You had it, you've had it, it was fairly
to do with,
recent with the tennis court.
Right.
Granted relief.
Subdividing the property.
Yes, yes.
Possibility of.
Oh, no, yeah, it's, as a matter of fact, let me just put this out here so that everyone can see it. The property is currently the subject of a subdivision application for the planning board, and there was a hearing with, really no contention. You know, what we're asking for is relief to increase the size of the guest house by less than 50%. But it is important, you know, just for full disclosure that you know, or remember, as you obviously remember, is that the property is the subject of a subdivision application. It's currently an 8.3 acre parcel, and when the front lot is subdivided out, it will be, I have the numbers here, 5.56 acres. But even with the subdivision, obviously, it's an oversized lot. So, and I think that's important for your consideration in this case, because you know, it's not as if, from a density point of view, we're trying to, you know, cram too much onto the property. The guest house exists currently, and it's pre-existing guest house. There's a certificate of occupancy showing the guest house, a relatively recent one, and it is, by the way, a guest house. I know that's always a concern. This is not a house that could be separately, the guest house is not a house that could be rented separately. It is certificated as a guest house, so it would have to be used for family or guests or friends or help of the owners or the occupants of the existing single-family residence on the property. What we propose, and Mr. Cope will take you through the actual plans, and we submitted the plans, is to add a net increase of 436.9 square feet to the guest house. And shown on Mr. Cope's drawing, since even I can do this math, since 50% of the existing 1520 square feet of the guest house is 762 square feet, the proposed 436.9 square foot addition is well under the 50% limitation contained in the village code. We also requested relief for front yard relief, because it is in the front yard, at least it is now, of the existing property. But again, it already exists in the front yard. It's quite removed from the wetlands. Agawam or any surrounding wetlands area. I would respectfully submit, given its location, that there's no impact on the neighbor. Indeed, the guest house already exists, and it's a relatively modest net increase. And I say net increase because we are removing, as Mr. Cope will demonstrate, we are removing some of the existing portion, an existing portion of the guest house, so it's a net increase of 436.9 feet. I got a call from Gil Flanagan today, who represents Scott Lindsay to the south. That's the other large parcel that shares this common driveway, who stated that he has no opposition. It's a type 2 action, so there would be no environmental impact. And also, as Mr. Cope will show you when he takes you through the plans, there's no net increase in bedrooms. So we're just trying to get a little bit more space for the existing guest house. Oliver, if you wanted to quickly take the board through the plans, I have a set of plans for you if you need them. Do you have them?
I have a set.
Oh, okay. And I submitted plans for everyone, so hopefully they're in your file.
You have them in front of you?
Do sets.
I'm sorry, Ken, before you take us all through the plans, just ask a couple of more general questions,
That's what we're here for.
because I'm trying to conceptually digest this application, in that right now, it's one property,
That's right.
but it's obviously going to be subdivided into two parcels. And so I guess we're going to have to look at this as a proposal for the 5-acre lot to be created rather than a proposal for the whole thing.
Yeah, I disclosed that in the application.
Oh, yeah, you disclose it. I'm just trying to digest whether this is the time to be making the application or whether it should be made after subdivision.
Well,
I'm not saying you can't make it now, but I do have a couple of questions that really
okay.
relate to that topic. And okay, the CO indicates two guest houses, well, what I call guest houses.
There is a,
One is the thing that's labeled garage apartment,
that's right.
and I'm assuming, and yet the other is the one-story building near the main house where you're showing, additions. Okay, so you have right now two legal pre-existing guest houses. I guess one question would be,
What's going to happen with the?
okay, in connection, let me just get through the whole thing so you understand where I'm conceptually having trouble digesting where we are on this before we even get to the plans. One question would be in connection with if the enlargement of the existing guest house near the main house is granted, would there be a condition or proposal to eliminate the other one? Let me get through it all.
Right, okay, sorry.
And if you're not now proposing or willing to propose eliminating the garage apartment, then, number one, we're going to want floor area data, etc. on that.
Okay.
And number two, we're going to want to know where it's going to go, or I think we are.
Okay.
I see your subdivision map says, well, right now, it can't stay where it is
On subdivision, no.
upon subdivision, so
Well,
it's not
we
like
have
the
it.
tennis court that we previously granted that could stay upon subdivision. It's going to have to be moved or removed, and I see a note on your subdivision plan to be removed or relocated to a conforming location, and it doesn't say upon subdivision, it says upon a sale of Lot 1 or Lot 2. So you're proposing to keep that after the subdivision, at least for a while. I don't know how you can do that without a variance.
If,
Okay,
okay.
I'm just raising a bunch of questions. I
I have an answer.
don't expect, nor would I necessarily want answers right at the moment.
Oh, I have them all.
Okay,
At
well,
least so far.
you may
So
think
far,
you do,
so far.
but
No,
I'd be,
I didn't. So
but
far.
I'm
But
predicting
you're
what
not-
one of them is, and that would not be satisfactory to
Okay,
me.
well, we'll see what happens.
Let's get the cards on the table.
The other one is that I don't know where there is a conforming location for this on the 5-acre parcel. You haven't shown one, and you're certainly gonna have to show one,
For the garage apartment.
yeah, for that guest house,
Okay, exactly. For the garage guest house.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it can't go between the main house and the front lot line of the Lot 2, because that would be in the front yard. That would not be a conforming location. To the rear, I don't know where the wetlands kick in,
Near the house.
but you may be putting it in wetlands jurisdiction, or either that or in a location where you said would not be appropriate for a tennis court when you were before us on the tennis court thing, and I don't know where it would go in the side, so if you want to pursue that note on the subdivision map, you're going to have to pursue it, you're going to have to show us some stuff now,
Okay,
not at some future point.
well, let me respond.
You can respond all you want, but you're still going to have to do this.
That's how I'm trying to respond. It has been the policy of the planning board, they did it on Coaden, a couple of other subdivisions that I've been involved with, to allow these buildings such as this to remain in place that would, I'm sorry, on the subject, that would straddle the lot line and not conform until such time, and a covenant is filed with the subdivision, until such time as the property is sold to a third party. So that, those.
I'm not suggesting that is not necessarily the policy of the planning board, but that may be something that the zoning board may want to,
So let me respond to the zoning board issue, where I think you're going. The hope was to be able to keep this 400, I have the square footage, it's 463, yeah, 436.6 square foot on Mr. Cope's
yeah,
plans.
we're going to have to see, we're going to want to see a floor plan sketch or something like you gave us for the one-story building.
Okay, well, why don't I just give you for now the square footage, so that you have the square footage
Okay,
information.
but don't forget, we're going to want to see a floor plan sketch so we can visit, so we can have something showing on that garage apartment building.
I understand. Here's the foot for the building. But just let me get right to the heart of it, which may resolve.
We got 'em.
The hope was to keep this 436.3 square feet in the garage apartment until such time as the front lot was sold. However, candidly, if it's the board's preference to have that 436.3 square feet abandoned as a condition of the variance for the enlargement of the guest house, I've spoken to the clients on several occasions, and that's something that regrettably, but conceivably, they would agree to. So the idea, again, would be to keep it there just until this lot was spun off, but if the board wants that abandoned now, the client understands that might be a condition for the enlargement of the guest house that the board would require.
So that would be the whole building would be abandoned, the garage part?
No, just the habitable space in the garage. It's a greenhouse apartment, and a garage.
And what would happen to the garage part when the other property is sold? Now,
It would either be moved to a conforming location or removed. Now,
right, is
now,
it gonna
you
go
might
with,
say conforming location, but what happens when this lot is subdivided? When this lot is subdivided, what's the front yard of this lot? Because you have accessory structures in both yards. So,
It's already been determined in connection with the tennis court
right,
that the division line between the two lots is the front lot line.
does that hold upon a subdivision? Because you have a front, Rick, you have a.
Okay,
have a
you
front
asked
yard.
for that variance because you wanted to build a tennis court before the subdivision.
That's right.
And you wanted to build it in a location that would be allowed after the subdivision.
That's right, but I don't know if when I.
And it was
subdivide-
put in terms of a front lot line
Okay,
variance.
but,
So you would need to modify either the front yard is between the division line and the main house,
mhm.
or you'd have to modify that prior decision.
Well-
You don't need to answer all these tonight, but
No.
There are some
I'm
serious
just-
questions
I'm
here.
not so sure when, upon the subdivision, you see what I'm saying? Now you have accessory structures in both yards. On a
we
subdivision,
granted that there because it's a waterfront property.
yeah, that's true.
That's why it's there.
Mhm. Well, it was a waterfront property, but it's, yeah,
we
And
granted
waterfront
that there
properties,
so
we
that
grant-
it would be on that side of the house instead of on the wetland side of the house, the tennis court.
okay, but there's still.
So that's it would be inconsistent for you to propose to put the garage apartment on the waterfront side of the
Oh, I would
house.
never do that. I
Okay.
would never do that because I would never do that because.
Okay, then you haven't shown us a conforming location yet.
Just let me finish. I would never propose to put the garage on the wetland side of the house, of the property, because the house sits at around 200 feet. I don't think there's any room for additional accessory structures consistent with the wetland setback on the east side of the property. It might fit in between the large guest house and the tennis court, however. If you're telling me that would need relief because of the wording of the
Because
tennis court
your
decision, I
prior
accept that.
application.
I accept that, I
Right.
accept that, I accept that.
In other words, if you want to ask to keep the garage apartment after subdivision by relocating it to another location, you're going to have to show us now as part of this application. You can't leave that to the future,
Okay.
when there is no apparent conforming location.
No, if I'm constrained by the
You
prior
can make it easy.
variance, I would agree with you, yes,
Okay,
I understand.
I mean, you can make it easy by proposing to remove the garage apartment building as a condition of granting the variance for the enlarged guest house. If you propose that, it makes all these other issues moot.
Just, do you want the habitable space gone, or all of it? Because it's actually quite a valuable,
Yeah, I
nice
think-
building, yeah.
That's, I can't even conceptualize it without seeing a floor plan
Well,
sketch for the
Well,
garage
yeah, that's
apartment.
right.
It's, basically, it's,
Well, just
Okay.
1 second.
Okay. Please.
If we can,
Put the plans together
Yeah, but
and give them to us.
I understand, but I'd like to get a sense of where the board wants to go with the square footage, the habitable square footage in the garage apartment. Do you want us to abandon that now as a condition of the variance? Because that will help me in terms of the ultimate disposition towards the greenhouse and the garage. You say get rid of the square footage.
It's all fun to me. In other words, at
Okay.
some point, this has to come down. It can't be allowed, the whole building, the greenhouse, once, if you sell the front lot, you have two lots. You've got this building that's sort of straddling both of them, it's in the wrong place, it's doing the wrong, so it's gotta have to get cleaned up at some point. Meanwhile, you keep adding to this, saying, well, okay, we'll give this up, but we still wanna keep it.
No,
To
I'm not
me-
saying that. What I'm saying, Ms. Guzman, I'm saying if I could deal with one thing at a time, right now, I'm not
You
saying.
could move that building onto the front lot and make it a primary residence for the front lot, and it would be cleaned up.
I can't do it now.
Why can't you? You own both lots.
They're not subdivided yet,
Okay.
so I can't do it now. And it probably wouldn't meet the minimum square footage requirements for a
That's
house.
primary
As a
structure?
It's
primary
not gonna be a
structure.
primary structure, no.
But if I can, I'm just.
Well, that's the problem I'm having, is there's all these little,
I understand. So what I'm trying to do is deal with them just one at a time. Do I have a sense, does the board want us to abandon that
I
square
don't know.
footage in the
Let me
garage?
ask you a question. What's the setback for the tennis court from the lot line division?
The proposed lot line division?
Yeah,
It's 90 feet,
okay.
yeah. It's 90.
So it's not in the required front yard, it's just in the front yard?
It is,
Not in the
yes,
required
exactly.
front yard, okay.
Even both before and after subdivision.
Great, okay.
Now, we meet the,
And how about these other little structures? Shed, and what's a lat house?
the only thing that really is of concern, because it's actually a beautiful, wonderful building, is that garage apartment and
Can't it be moved?
the greenhouse, the lath house, the sheds, I don't think there's, those, we can get rid of those right now. I guess the hope was to be able to leave the garage apartment, but if you want us to deal with, to leave the, this, garage apartment greenhouse building, but if you want us to try to deal with it now, we can do that. I understand for the purposes of,
Even if you don't have the apartment, you still got the building. The building is
Yes.
the problem, not the apartment. I don't see any problem with the apartment, especially if it goes with the front lot.
we have a timing problem because we wanted to get going on the guest house.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, this is more a phasing issue than anything else,
Yeah.
in the sense that, there's the subdivision, which is a kind of long-term issue, and it's about, I guess, preserving their options for doing that.
Yes.
The guest cottage itself is about mom and giving her a place to live and getting it fixed up so that,
For who?
for his mother, for the
one that you made
the one we're
drawings
making the
for.
addition to.
Yeah.
I think long-term, we've all talked about probably keeping the use of the accessory apartment in the garage building. It's not really something that we're gonna be able to hang on to, given that ultimately that building would have to be removed or relocated. For the time being, though, it is the only garage space on the property. And so, I think from a utility standpoint, for them to keep whatever lawnmowers, the odd car, kids' bicycles, it's there, and they haven't subdivided it. So we'd like to keep the building itself because it has utility, and it's always, for all intents and purposes, it's always been there.
Well,
Actually,
once
a
you
lot of work-
subdivide it and you have to tear it down,
Yes.
where are the bikes and all that gonna
No,
go?
then we'll,
We're gonna then build a garage. See,
yeah, we'll have to deal with
It's sort of
it.
like he wants his,
No.
all these options left open,
Well, but that's not a new.
which is not, but at some point, when do you start
Well,
closing?
the way the planning board has specifically agreed, and I'm not saying that you're bound by that, but the way the planning board has specifically agreed that we can leave these buildings, and let's just say the garage apartment, because that's the only important building, the garage apartment greenhouse, in this location after subdivision, even though it straddles the lot line, until such time as this front lot is sold to a third party. That's something that they've done. And the idea is, actually, it's sort of, in a way, it encourages keeping everything together. Coaden is a great example. Coaden is 3 lots, but there are accessory buildings that straddle all sorts of lot lines, and it's been through at least 2 separate successive ownerships, subdivided into 3 lots, but essentially utilized de facto as 1 lot with that covenant. So I think from a policy point of view, that's a good idea that the planning board has. I understand the, you know, the struggle you have in terms of ultimately, would you
From
prefer
a
to
zoning
have?
point of view, I say, okay, they sell the front lot, so now you have to tear this building down, now you have to build a garage, and then other accommodations for the front lot, and I see more cases coming back before.
Well, let me
the-
ask you something
the
then.
board
It's
that,
talking about
you
what
know,
Doc-
maybe-
talking about what Dr. Corman used to say, let's try to get as much, you know.
Well, I
settled
was
at one
gonna quote
time.
something, and
I
she
know.
said, you're piecemealing us
I
to
know,
death,
okay.
John.
So does it make sense then
I'm
to
beginning
try
to think this would have been better if you came before us with the whole thing, including tennis court, after the subdivision was done.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, you came before us and we gave you something,
Yes, that's right.
and now you're not completely happy with what we gave you, but you are happy with it in one sense, but
was
not in
happy.
another sense.
I was happy with your variance, don't get me wrong. Does it make sense to try to see if there is a location where we could put this on the, what will be the lot number 2? Because I don't think we're gonna be able to solve this issue this evening unless we just, I'm terribly sorry, I apologize for that, I thought I'd turned it off. A million apologies. Unless we agree to just take everything down, and there's been a lot of money just recently put into this building, so it's a brand new, you know, cedar shingle roof, and I think we have to go back and talk to the client and see whether or not they would be willing to approach the board with some ultimate solution for the location of this garage apartment greenhouse.
Time for the house
Getting rid of
movers.
excuse me?
Be time for dawn house movers.
Yeah.
I
we're not gonna get a
guess
decision tonight.
that's fine, but I would like to get a sense, okay, let's just hypothetically, we generate a conforming location for the garage.
Well, it couldn't be, as Mr. DePietro said, there really is no conforming location. We would have to ask the board for relief, maybe to put it in this area or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, but I don't, we have to talk to our clients.
Right.
In all my conversations with them,
Right.
I don't think there's the idea of holding on to this thing forever. Certainly willing to give it up if they sell the front.
Well, the planning board's willing to go
Okay.
along with that, but there's a
Because
procedural and legal problem from the zoning point of view that this board has, and I understand it.
All right,
Isn't
we
there
can go back to
something
the-
illogical about subdividing a property and then going back and using it as one property, unsubdividing it in a sense?
No, you should encourage that.
You've
because-
subdivided the property, but you're still using it as one
Yeah, you
property.
should encourage that. Kuwaitan is the best example. It's been through at least 2, maybe 3 successive family ownerships.
But they haven't sold it anymore.
Yeah, but they've all kept it all together.
Aren't they giving up their subdivision in a way, that way?
No. They've kept it in 3
I'm
separate
sure.
lots. They're all controlled by the same family, and you actually encourage it that way. Because, you know, God forbid it has to be sold for whatever reason, estate or whatever, then it is available for subdivision. But it's a good idea.
It also involves an enforcement issue. Who's gonna remember
Well, there's a covenant,
at the time when you sell the property, when you sell the front lot,
right?
if you sell the front lot and keep the back lot,
Right. There was a covenant filed. So at the, you know, and the lawyer's gonna look at the buying lawyer's gonna look at the covenant, he's gonna say, I'm not gonna buy a piece of property that the second I close, I'm gonna be in violation of the covenant.
what's gonna bring this attention, to the attention of the building department?
Well, I don't know, Rick,
You
we
go with-
file covenants before all land use boards, assuming that they're gonna be
Okay, I mean,
obeyed,
it's just-
you know. But just tell us where you wanna go. That-
And
you know,
it's
That's what we're trying
complicated
to
by the
figure
fact
out.
that it involves living space.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. That sounds to me
I have a
like you have
real
concern
problem with
about
that.
that 400 square feet of living space.
That's what,
So if we want to get rid of that, then listen, the client understands that.
That's fine.
Let's just get rid of the 400 square feet of living space. I've talked to the client about it. The desire was
That
to
doesn't
keep it.
solve the problem of where the building is at all.
Okay, but Rick just to say that's a big concern for him. It also makes the square footage issue easier because in effect, net, you're not adding
you're
any
transferring, you're transferring the 400 square feet to,
Right. And I think that might have happened in the planning board eventually anyway.
Well, the 400 square feet, I mean, this is such a huge piece of property, 400 square feet. It's like a needle in it, you know? The head of a needle in it.
I'm trying to help.
Well, you're getting rid of a
Trying to-
use though, you know?
Well, you're getting rid of a use, yeah. John, can I ask you something, John?
Yes.
Why are your cases lately getting more and more complicated and more drawn out?
He has more of them with me.
What are the cases?
Well, the one down on Lee Avenue for one. Yeah, well, you've forgotten it already. You've forgotten that case already,
I thought
John.
that was pretty straightforward.
Straightforward. It wasn't straightforward to the neighbors.
No, well, I can't do anything about that.
I don't think they were too happy with what they
No,
walked out of here
No, they
tonight.
yelled at me
Can,
on the way out.
can we talk for 2 seconds? Because I'm not sure that you're,
Well, I don't want to hold you up,
Okay.
Joel.
You're good. It's,
Okay.
this is great.
I have, this is a scheduling thing.
I understand.
Okay, so I'm trying to move this portion forward for their
Talk to the
use,
board, yeah.
so that there's a house for the mother-in-law, okay? There is, interest in the garage building for its utility for the near term. We are working on designs for an attached garage for the house, which would be conforming. But this is a longer-term thing with them that they're not sure that they're gonna do, and we're talking about it. And it'll solve the garage problem down the road. I'm trying to address this
Guest house.
change to the guest house because we're trying to accommodate the mother. I don't think there's any need to hang on to the use of the thing, because I understand guest houses in and of themselves aren't permitted. This is a pre-existing non-conforming use. We didn't change the number of bedrooms, we've just changed the plan, and part of the reason we changed the plan is there was a piece of a garage that was turned into a bedroom at some point and is right on top of a gate. The house is right behind you on the wall. It's a nice historic, it's called Normandy House, you know which one it is. And we're trying to make a better piece and free up the space where there's a gate that drives into the back end. So we turned it, we made a few things a little bigger, made a little bit bigger kitchen and a slightly bigger bedroom, and then for visiting kids and stuff, maybe there's this loft. So it's not a big change, and we're trying to do it in an architecturally sensitive way, and they want me to get it moving so that we can start construction on that in the fall. And I think we're getting way too bogged down, and I understand why from a zoning point of view in this discussion of the garage, but nobody's wrapped up in the garage from my client's point of view,
Well-
except for near-term utility.
Well, the problem is that the easy thing to do is just get rid of them all, but then the 3 sheds don't create a problem, but.
No, but
can't-
and I'd say, I don't understand why you would have to get rid of this garage now, even with the subdivision. I think it makes total sense, and I've done it before with other
Well, let
projects
me-
for
let me propose
later on.
something. The problem is, the board wants to see the complete package, what's going to happen, so we're saying we're gonna remove the garage, or make it, put it into a conforming location, and given the limitations of the prior variance, there really is no conforming location. So any place we're gonna put this garage, if we're gonna keep it on this waterfront lot, is going to need
Another
further
variance.
relief from this board. So the question that I have is, do we ask the client right now, do they wanna take everything down here, or do they wanna go back and attempt to put the garage, this garage in an area where, I think we're to the point where we're gonna give up the habitable space in there, okay? In this area, somewhere around here, which would require coming back to the board. There's not gonna be a decision tonight.
Right, I understand that.
anyway. So we could come back next month and, if we want, ask the client if we can find a location here, or we can say, it's all gotta come down.
It would have to be between the tennis court and the house.
Have to be between the tennis court and the house. Understanding that we're giving up the habitable space there, which hopefully.
So we would have to
give us some
modify, we would have to give you a variance to put it in another location on the property.
Yes.
But at least when we do that, you're made whole. There's no hanging
Yes,
chads.
and it takes
All right.
care of the whole damn ball.
Right.
In once,
Right,
which I agree.
right.
Yeah.
As a hypothetical, if it was attached to the guest cottage, does that change the way you treat the the front yard side.
No, it's still,
issue.
it still would need a front yard variance. Because it's a structure in the front yard.
But if
whether
it's attached to an existing structure, it's just an
still-
expansion of
you-
that
Well,
structure.
you're still, yeah, it's
You need a
expanding.
variance because you're
Increasing the
expanding the
nonconformity, yeah.
nonconformity.
Well,
Okay.
you're not increasing the non-conforming use, but you're increasing the non-conforming size of it. So,
Right.
yeah. So I think we need to ask the Brillies whether or not they want to try to retain this without the habitable space, because I
Mhm.
think that we're past that
Mhm.
in this area, or attach it to this garage, the guest house. And we have to come back, because I think understandably, the board wants to see, a complete plan for the property.
Okay.
We're not gonna get a decision tonight anyway,
Right.
so. Not that I expected one.
No.
Could we talk about as long as we're here, could we get a sense from the board in terms of the addition to the square footage of the guest house? Doesn't seem to be problematic. It seems to be similar to applications that have been granted in the past, and particularly if we're getting rid of the habitable space in the garage apartment. I think you're pretty much almost net,
It
you've
does
got
meet the
no
setbacks,
increase.
right?
Yeah.
Off the northerly line, it meets the
Yes.
setbacks.
So we were going to add, just so we have the numbers, excuse me for 1 second, we were gonna add
400 and some odd square feet, right?
we were gonna add
430-something.
436.9 square feet to the guest house. The greenhouse has 436.3
We're
square
talking about
feet.
0.6 feet,
Yes.
square feet.
And we did not try to do that. That was,
The way it happened.
Just luck.
yeah, it's happened.
So it would be helpful if you could, you can say nothing, but I would, from a sense of the board, is there a
I
problem?
don't think there's any too much
Guest house.
problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
This other
It's just
is more of an issue than,
Taking care of the garage.
Yeah.
Figuring out where it's gonna go. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And, does that sound like a reasonable approach to it?
You're eliminating 436.3 feet, you're getting 436.9 feet, and you're getting it away from property lines and stuff like that. It seems to me like it's a no-brainer.
Okay, all right, so let's see if we can figure out whether or not they wanna bite the bullet and just take everything. I think we can say this laugh house, the shed, and the
Oh, yeah.
shed, they're
And
gone.
the greenhouse too.
And the greenhouse too?
I think, that was sort of the conversations I've had, but anyway.
Okay.
we already did them a favor with the tennis court.
Oh,
I don't
So-
much care at the moment about the greenhouse, the lath house, the shed, or the shed, because the two sheds and the lath house are all on lot one. The greenhouse is split, so that straddles the line. So when lot one, that stuff is gonna have to be gone. That the planning board can deal with that.
yeah, no, I understand.
But it's the garage apartment building.
Got it, okay. So let's see.
It
if we
seems
can
to me has to be dealt with now. And I don't even know at this point whether that building, because I don't think we have any plans for it, do we? I don't know whether that building is a one-story building that's partly garage and partly apartment,
Yeah,
or whether
we just
it's,
did it before.
We have a floor.
I have a floor plan.
yeah, that's what I said we don't have.
No, you don't, no, we have a floor plan for it.
Is it a one-story building, part and part?
It's
or-
a story and a half in the sense that there's a loft built up into, there's a sleeping loft above the lower level of the
So we
living
would
quarters.
obviously remove that. Do you want as-built drawings, or? We're gonna try to move it to another location, we're gonna need relief, so, obviously, we'd show a floor plan with the habitable space removed, and if we could just provide, whatever you need, actually, to deal with that garage, assuming the clients wanna try to put it in a location, in between the tennis court and the
Yeah,
house.
well, we should all have copies of the existing floor plan,
Okay. Right,
which
okay.
you can submit for us, so that at least we'll have in front of us
Got
what
it.
you've just described. I gather some of the habitable floor area is on the first floor and some of it's on the loft?
That's correct.
Okay, so we gotta have, even to know what you're gonna eliminate, we gotta see that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Okay, we can, Oliver, we can get that to the board.
If you're gonna propose to, and then take it from there as to where you wanna put the garage.
Okay, all right. Sounds good, okay.
Does the board want them to walk you through the plans for the guest house enlargement, which I stopped them from doing? Or are you satisfied with understanding those?
I pretty much looked them over.
Okay, the board has no problems, no questions regarding your plans.
Okay. Okay. I
we have
think in the
anything else on the
long
board?
term, it actually, it helps define it. And for the short term, it's gonna be, I think in the long term, it helps define it, figure it out. Okay, well, thanks.
Do we have anyone on the public like to be heard to this application? Guess not. So we're going to adjourn this for all purposes.
So moved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All in favor?
And I didn't have an answer for everything, I guess.
Almost everything.
Almost everything.
Not everything.
Nobody ever considered putting a mother-in-law in a garage apartment.
See, I think that's a huge practical difficulty.
Just ask.
We were gonna keep going until we stumped you anyway.
You're on tape, it's all right.
No, I know. Well, I put my foot in my mouth many times. Okay, thanks again.
You want those?
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you a separate.
Thanks.
Not a problem.
Fordham Road.
Moneypenny, 19 Moneypenny, Fordham Road.
Joel Bass for.
The application
Matthew
2816, Matthew Moneypenny, excuse me,
Moneypenny.
Fordham Road.
Yes, Joel Bass, 473 North Main Street, Southampton. Last night at the ZBA meeting,
This is the ZBA.
ARB.
I'm in the ARB meeting, it was discovered that between the building office, when all the plans were submitted, and meeting, that the elevations are not with the plans. So I went ahead and printed a couple extra sets, but let me describe what we're talking about, and it's really quite simple. It's not as elaborate as what's been going on. Mr. Moneypenny bought a 900 square foot cottage on Fordham Road. And I've been directed to repair and revitalize it in absolute detail to what has been there. Although we need new windows, the windows have been handmade in Vermont, and they're single pane windows, and they're absolutely identical to what would be represented there. So everything that we're doing is very expensive and revitalizing it. What he's asking for, because it's a 900 square foot cottage, there's a pre-existing entryway on the cottage, and this entryway here, which is pre-existing. And during the winter, because we're changing the woodwork inside and doing some details inside, we enclosed it so that it wasn't heated, there were no services going on, so we could keep a very small generator outside and not have it in our habitable space while we were working. And he said, wouldn't it be great if I could have an entry that was all glass, that was made by this company, and that would be identical to the windows. And it would be about 60% glass with a front door on it. And that's one of the things that he's asking for, is to be able to enclose that. No change of footprint, everything's the same, simply put glass and a front door on it, and everything would be okay. Then,
Already has a roof, right?
yeah, has a roof, has everything on it. Then we went to the back of the house where there was a lot of water damage. And there's on the plan, there's a little 40 square foot notch on it. I think you have the survey, and there's a,
Oh, yeah, okay.
that's proposed. And what he'd like to do is to enclose that, add that 40 square feet to the house so that he actually could have a kitchen. Because right now, it's just sort of, just a platform with a stove on it. It's almost non-usable. And that's it. That's what he's asking.
Okay, let me just interrupt you at one point. The 44 square foot notch that you're talking about
Yes.
is not included in the public hearing notice as a variance request.
It is. There's an addition. It says addition.
No, the public hearing notice.
Well, I don't know who did that. I didn't,
And I'm guessing that,
I.
well, it's not in the public hearing notice, so the board can't consider it, but I'm guessing it wasn't included in the public hearing notice because it doesn't need a variance.
Oops.
Your lot area is 6,000 some square feet. The side yard requirements are 10-foot minimum and 20-foot total, so 10 foot on each side. You have 13 on one, 13 and a half on one, and 12.7 on another. It doesn't look like you need a variance for that notch.
Okay.
And if you did, we couldn't give it to you without it being re-advertised. So let's proceed with the front porch thing. That's probably all you need. We can act on that. You could always speak to the building department.
I did. I mean, that's where I went first with all of it. And.
Yes, but did they tell you that this needed a variance?
No, they didn't say one way or another.
Okay, so it doesn't look like it needs a variance.
Okay.
You can confirm that with the building department.
No problem.
If it
Sure.
doesn't need a variance, then you're entitled to it.
Right.
If it
Okay.
does, you're gonna have to have it re-advertised.
Okay.
But it doesn't look like.
The main thing was not to, was to get everything proper and, and so to speak kosher. The front is just a simple enclosure with 2 operable windows and a door in the center and fixed glass on each side. And they would be, again, made by this company, and they're identical to the windows that I showed.
The windows that are along the driveway side, I did see those.
Yeah, I mean, all the windows, what the previous owner did was, the windows were operable and they were all, they were really quite beautiful, but they were convinced to take out the sashes and put in aluminum sashes and take all the weights out and do all that, and then they threw them away. But the ones that are there, that are pre-existing, took us a day to clean up and reuse, and you just simply oil the wheels for the weights and everything's perfect, So, we could have gone further and actually had the windows made that way, but because of wind codes and so on and so forth, we had them made with thermopane glass to make it more contemporary and hold up,
Do you hand in the postings, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Do you hand in the postings? Notification to the neighbors?
Yeah, I have them.
We need those for the file. There you go.
Should I give them to you?
Give it,
I'm sorry. So it's nothing real elaborate, it's just sort of, the primary part is the directive is to revitalize this cottage.
but the only thing you want the variance for is to enclose the front entryway.
That's it.
Let's see.
At the moment, it's a roof porch, and you want to enclose the,
Just, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a roof porch, pre-existing, everything's there. We just have to put the windows in.
There's no one out in the audience, but I'll ask anyway.
I didn't realize it was.
applicant requests a front yard variance to 21.4 feet from Fordham Road in order to permit enclosure of the existing roof porch, period. In view of the fact that the existing porch is roofed and is located 21.4 feet from Fordham Road, and in view of our familiarity with the character of the neighborhood, we conclude that the proposed enclosure will not have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood, and thus we grant such variance.
Move we accept this variance as proposed.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
This meeting of the Southampton Village Zoning Board of Appeals is closed.